Hi, everyone. Toss-up question. When a company takes in less money than it spends, what do we call that situation? Dana?
Insolvency.
Insolvency, right. And when a company is insolvent, what system does it go through? What situation?
Bankruptcy.
Bankruptcy. And what type? Henry?
Chapter 11?
Chapter 11 is used for reorganization. Chapter 7 when you're liquidating assets. Now let me ask you a question. That's companies. Can cities go bankrupt? Can states go bankrupt? Can national governments go bankrupt?
Dr. Philip Romero is an accomplished economist and best-selling author. He is Dean Emeritus at the University of Oregon and a professor of business administration where he teaches economics and finance. Dr. Romero was chief economist of the state of California in the 1990s, serving Governor Pete Wilson. His latest book is Your Macroeconomic Edge. Phil is noted for presenting complex economic principles in an easy-to-understand manner using current real-world examples that relate to our everyday lives. Each episode begins in his classroom with a discussion of the issues and people making news. Questions are encouraged on a wide range of subjects relevant to each student.
Greece has been in the news lately. Didn't they get a bailout from the European Union? They're in a bad depression, so is the bailout working?
Detroit filed Chapter 9 bankruptcy. How did that happen?
I'm in the entrepreneurship club and am planning to start my own business after graduating. How hard will it be for me to find capital?
How has this affected the global economy?
Econ's great, but will this count towards my community service hours?
My mom's boyfriend said that I should buy real estate. So, what is that?
19 of the 22 largest bankruptcies in world history were filed since the turn of the 21st century, half in just the last 4 years. General Motors, Chrysler, United Airlines, Delta Airlines, and Pacific Gas and Electric, a company that dates back to the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. The two largest were filed in September of 2008. The investment bank Lehman Brothers, founded in 1850, and Washington Mutual, the world's largest mortgage banker, accounted between them for more assets than the other 20 combined, $1.1 trillion, about the size of a large European country.
Detroit filed for Chapter 9 municipal bankruptcy. Was that a firewall or a domino?
It's a firewall in the sense you can contain the other 100 potential municipal bankruptcies if Detroit uses the time in bankruptcy to become solvent again. It's a domino if they continue to borrow too much, become insolvent, and spread their contagion to the other cities that are at risk of going bankrupt.
We've heard a lot of talk about unfunded pension liability. What does that mean?
Unfunded liability of any kind essentially means that you've made promises that you don't have the savings to pay for. Great example is if I have a 5-year-old son and I promise him that when he turns 18 he can go to any college in the country, but then when he turns 18 he says, Dad, I want to go to the University of Oregon, and I say, son, I never actually saved the money. That's an unfunded liability. I never funded the promise that I made to him at age 5. Well, the stock market crash of September 2008 scared a lot of people. Their 401ks plummeted. They had to delay retirement or cancel important life plans. My goal in the series is to give people a clear understanding of economic principles so they can control their own finances. My deal with my students has 3 stages. Stage 1, they pay attention and they listen carefully. Stage 2, they gain comprehension and understanding. Stage 3 is they're satisfied because they can use the knowledge in their real lives. Stage 1, pay attention, listen carefully. Stage 2, comprehension and understanding. Stage 3, satisfaction.
Segment 2 features Phil in an informal discussion of current events with a panel of guests.
Phil, we just heard a compelling story about Detroit, but what I really need to know, so is this a blip or is it a trend?
Yeah, I wish it was a blip today, but I really don't think it is. Many cities in the U.S. have committed more funds than they can ever generate themselves. I think we're going to see a wave of municipal bankruptcies and maybe state bankruptcies in the future.
A wave. So considering that wave would extend to D.C., is that on your radar?
Well, the federal government has something like $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities. So they're really bankrupt already. They're just concealing it because they can print money themselves. Problem is that if they don't go bankrupt, they may make the currency worthless by inflating it away.
Uh-huh. Talk to me about another debt, the student loan debt market. If I understand it, surpassed the $1 trillion mark.
That's right.
Which, for point of reference, that's larger than our consumer credit card debt.
Exactly right.
Tell me more.
Well, higher ed is a bubble. There's too much demand for it. Colleges have raised prices too much, and students can only fund it through the kind of debt you just described. I personally think that this is an industry that's going to shrink. That debt is going to be unsupportable, and it will probably be the next federal bailout.
So roll this back for me, Phil, because I think what we all want to know is how does the individual investor take this all into account?
Well, we're in a new normal. We're in a new normal, slower growth and higher inflation. And I think for most investors who invest long term, that means you have to hedge against inflation, and you have to count on much slower growth and lower growth in stock prices than before. And finally, the last thing you want to do is invest in the debt of developed country governments, like Detroit, like California, like Oregon, like Washington, D.C., because you're going to take a haircut if you do that.
Any change in that train of thought for an investor from your generation?
Well, actually, I think it's especially relevant for a baby boomer or older, because the people my age are typically income-oriented. Income means bonds. Bonds often mean municipal bonds, which are exactly the assets that are most at risk. For a younger generation who's still in the asset accumulation phase, what I have to say is you're going to have to save more, because you can't count on the stock market to grow as much as it has in the past to replace the savings you're not doing.
Sounds like I have some work to do.
Fred, we all do. Okay, so Henry, you're the president of the University of Oregon Entrepreneurship Club. Congratulations.
Thank you.
By the way. What does that mean? What does the Entrepreneurship Club do?
Well, the University of Oregon Entrepreneurship Club is a group of over 100 students at the U of O, and what we're really trying to do here is foster a more entrepreneurial community at the University of Oregon.
Gotcha. And so I imagine some of the graduates go off and form small companies, right?
Yeah, we do, and we really try to foster a support system within our group. We try to network a lot and really exploit all the talents that we kind of bring to the table in our club.
What do you think is different about entrepreneurship students from other business students?
Well, I think entrepreneurship students, I think, have done a lot of self-exploration, just kind of have really looked at themselves and looked at kind of what they want and the system in life that they really want to fit into. And I think that they're, overall a very passionate and creative group of people that are really fun to hang around.
So you guys do Shark Tank?
We do Shark Tank. It was a great experience. I even took part in it. We had a Shark Tank event that pitted the University of Oregon entrepreneurs against the Oregon State entrepreneurs. So there was some sibling rivalry, if you know what I mean, and it was a great time.
Yeah, a civil war of the entrepreneurs, basically.
Yeah, you could say that, yeah.
So what do you hear from alumni of the club? What do you hear about their ability to raise capital, how easy or hard it is to found a company in this environment? Things like that.
We've heard from a lot of them that it's very hard. A lot of them have done a lot of bootstrapping, or have just done credit cards and taken the 20% interest rate. So yeah, it's a tough road out there. 20%
financing when big companies can borrow for 1% is really, really tough.
Yeah, it's tough to compete. Yeah.
So with that in mind, your fellow members, what kind of lessons do they learn? How do you think they're approaching entrepreneurship differently from the last generation?
Well, I think that they're kind of having to rely more on starting from the ground up, and I think that's why you see so much, entrepreneurial development right now going into software, is because the barriers to entry are very low, especially if you know how to program computers or know people that do program computers. And I think if people had more access to capital, they would maybe explore some other industries more.
Yeah, I think you're quite right. I mean, software, you need a computer and some skills, and not a lot of other capital, and that's why they can do it effectively bootstrapping.
Yeah.
And you're interested in software, aren't you?
I am. I've done a little bit of stuff with software and working on a few projects right now, and I do a little bit of coding myself, and I'm lucky because the barriers to entry are very low for that, especially since I don't need much capital to start. But we have a lot of people in our club who are interested in fields such as the food industry and stuff where the barriers are way higher. They need capital and they aren't able to find it right now a lot of the time.
Are there any particular applications or niches of the software market you think are promising where you could monetize?
For myself? Or,
yeah, for yourself.
Well, I think that the recruitment industry of how companies and businesses and really anyone in particular is recruiting college students. I think the possibilities in aggregating that, I think there's huge potential in that field, in that industry.
So just for the audience, describe what you mean by aggregation.
Aggregation is just kind of it's taking all the information that's out there and kind of putting it into one platform. So, all the information on all these students at different universities and different departments are all spread over the internet, whether it's in LinkedIn or a site like Behance that's more of a portfolio site. And recruiters still have a very inefficient way in which they operate, recruiting college students. And having, there's a skills gap between what, the market wants and what a lot of college kids are able to provide, since because the specific companies aren't recruiting them from a younger age, which it's almost like kind of the ancient Greek apprentice system where they'd put kids into the system very young. I think that's almost what we're starting to kind of get to right now, but I think that's what aggregation can play into.
Germans have done that very effectively for many years, and Americans really don't do it.
Yeah.
Well, Henry, since I have a vested interest in your success, I wish you nothing but much aggregate income in the future. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much, Phil.
Cut and wrap. We're done.
Finally! If this went on any longer, I'd have to shave again.